Hi, my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and welcome to today's SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home with Josh Gad. Today's guest currently plays a billionaire entrepreneur on the show Avenue 5, but he's also beloved for a wide variety of roles on stage and screen, playing everything from a Mormon missionary to a talking snowman. I'm so thrilled to welcome Josh Gad. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. It was very easy for me. I get to wake up, jump in the shower, come to my office and do this without having to go through hair and makeup or driving anywhere. So we can do this all day.
Well, you know, it's funny. I wanted to do this in my pajamas, but I thought that might be disrespectful. So
at this point, I think anything goes.
This is primarily for an audience of SAG actors, so I actually like to always start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
ER. I had graduated from Carnegie Mellon Drama in 2003. We do something called a showcase. And at the showcase, we do these performances for casting directors, agents, managers. And one of the people who was there was John Levy. And his casting director, Sarah Isaacson at the time, his associate rather. And I did this thing and they remembered me. And for whatever ungodly reason, my first job on screen was playing a doctor.
You were, see, I would have guessed a patient, but I love
I know, I would have guessed a patient too, given my health conditions. And I don't know how to take that, but I played a doctor, and it was like a bubble episode that took place in Iraq. So we shot in like the desert. It was pretty crazy, a pretty cool and exciting way to get started.
I just meant because you were so young at the time, I assumed you would have been a patient. You were like a Doogie Howser doctor.
Yeah, I was, and I remember being on the set, I was so nervous. And one of the things that I had to do was provide somebody who was unconscious with oxygen. And so I was pumping and pumping and pumping. And I was doing it so fast. And I remember the director looking at me and going, Josh, you're killing that patient. You're literally, you're involved in homicide right now. You're not saving that person's life. So a lot of missteps that I think, thank God for everybody at home that I didn't actually go into the medical profession.
Well, you're one of those actors who, whenever I see your name, I know it's something I'm going to watch, but I was particularly excited by Avenue 5 because this pedigree is amazing. It's from Veep creator Armando Iannucci. I'm just sort of curious, like, does he call you up out of the blue and say he has something for you? Is it an audition process? Like, how does this even happen?
I have been forever obsessed with Armando. The thick of it, I think, is just incredible. Veep is, in my opinion, the greatest comedy of the 21st century. Death of Stalin is one of the greatest comedies ever. One of my favorite movies of all time is A Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin. And it's the closest thing I've ever seen to accomplishing what that movie did. And just this tonal balance that's both so profoundly funny, but also really deep and emotional in some places. So I had been a giant fan. My team, I've always been a little unlucky in love with television, and from 1600 Penn to the comedians,
it's love, by the way.
And I love them too, but it was sort of hard for me to imagine going back to TV unless it was like an amazing project that I felt like I could really sink my teeth into, and alongside people that I loved, especially in comedy. And when I read the script, I said, I have to be a part of this. So I actually sent a tape in to Armando and the amazing casting director, Allison Jones. And I said, whatever I have to do, I just want him to take a look at this, because I know I could play this role in my sleep, and I would do anything to work with him. And waited and waited and waited, and he watched it finally, and I got a call, and then the rest is history. I'm so blessed and fortunate that I got to partake not only in an Armando Iannucci project, but one that has the most incredible group of writers and actors, beginning with one of my heroes, Hugh Laurie.
I mean, he seems to be your primary scene partner. It's an ensemble show, but you know, just watching like the season finale, it's the two of you alone for a lot of it. I can't even imagine. Do you ever get intimidated by the people you're working with?
Always, always. For everybody. I think you know, Hugh, Lenora, Zach Woods, Susie Nakamura, Ethan Phillips. There isn't a person in the cast who doesn't intimidate me and doesn't make me feel like I don't belong. I truly find that each and every single one of them brings out the best in me in a different way. And Hugh is the most incredible sparring partner because he truly listens and responds and is always in the moment. He never phones it in and is always asking questions. There isn't a moment that isn't worthy of a question, even, you know, justifying a motivation to walk to the end of a hall for any particular reason. So I'm really always trying to learn, always trying to observe, and always trying to soak in what my fellow co-stars, in this case a brilliant ensemble, provides me with.
It's curious. I'm curious because you mentioned you sent in a self-tape. Was it always the role of Herman Judd that appealed to you? Because I could actually see you in a couple of these roles.
It was always the role of Herman Judd that appealed to me. I'm fascinated by the idea of this sort of false entrepreneur, right? I became obsessed during the course of making this project with people like the creator of Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, and like the creator of Firefly, sorry, not Firefly, the creator of the Fire Festival, Billy McFarland. And, you know, in sort of researching what the modern day entrepreneur looks like compared to sort of the early 20th century tycoons who gave us, you know, the birth of industry in many ways in America. There's a big difference, right? And it doesn't account for everybody who is a would-be entrepreneur, but there's a lot of people out there who have an idea but don't actually want to put in the time to work that idea and develop the skill sets to actually make that idea a great one, and instead just want to get to the end game and cut corners in between. And that is quintessentially Herman Judd. And I saw Herman as an extension of those people, like Elizabeth, like Billy, who has the marketing campaign long before he has any product worthy of marketing. And especially now when we find ourselves in a great crisis with questionable leadership from the top, I really found that to be an incredible opportunity to play somebody like Herman Judd, who really truly in his heart believes he's an expert, even though he literally has no expertise in anything, but does have a healthy pocketbook.
I would also point out he has bad hair and likes to put his name on everything.
Coincidental, I assure you. Yeah, no, you know, the inspiration for the hair was a funny one. There was this story about Elizabeth Holmes when she created Theranos, again, in trying to put out the cult of personality. She created she had the same person who created the turtleneck look for Steve Jobs create specially branded ones for her, so that it would evoke the image of the heir apparent to obviously the great tycoon of Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs. And it was so funny to me that somebody would do that. And so by extension, I thought, what would be the next level of insanity that somebody could do? And Herman Judd's hero would obviously be Richard Branson, creator of Virgin Galactic. And so why put on similar clothes when you can have his literal hair in the future? So that was the inspiration behind that insane hairdo.
I love that. And I'm sure other people have pointed this out, but Avenue 5 feels a little eerily prescient during this pandemic where everyone's sort of trapped in one place and things are sort of being bungled by the people in charge. I mean, you couldn't have predicted that, or maybe you could have, I don't know. But the timing is really eerily perfect.
I think it's a testament to the genius of Armando Iannucci and his team, who always seem to have a finger on the pulse of where things not necessarily are, but where they are headed. It's beyond prophetic. I don't know that any of us could have predicted that we would find ourselves in such an eerily similar situation within 6 months of our premiere. Certainly, I think that the world was ripe for similarities down the road. But there is something almost like a documentary about this. It's so funny. On a weekly basis, our penultimate episode, there's this incredibly brilliant sequence that when I read it, my jaw hit the floor, where a bunch of passengers refuse to believe what the experts on the ship are telling them, that they're really in space. And one by one, they all start walking out the fucking airlock. I mean, where they literally just are like, this is fake. None of this is real. And they all walk out the airlock. Mm-hmm. And it's insane. And even when they see their fellow passengers freezing and dying in outer space, they continue to do it.
Yep.
So on a weekly basis now, people send me images of protesters not wearing masks, gathering in tight groups. And I can't help but shake my head and say, wait, we didn't know. We really didn't know.
It's funny you mentioned that sequence, because I literally screamed when it first happened, when they're like, we're all leaving, and then they just froze. And there's one person who's like, wait, I've changed my mind.
It's so good. That sequence took 3 days to shoot. And it was miserable because we were all in very tight quarters and it was so hot. And we kept having to do it over and over again and reset for special effects, which is a big runner in the scene as well, is that there's one passenger in particular who claims all of this is a special effect.
Yeah.
But it speaks to, I think, the genius of Armando and his vision being so prescient.
What are you sort of doing during this lockdown? What's keeping you going? I know you have kids, so that's probably enough, but are you reading anything or watching anything that's sort of helping you through this time?
All of the above. I find myself working harder than ever before somehow. I'm doing this new YouTube series to raise money for charities in support of COVID-related foundations, places like Project Hope, which is supplying PPE to front line defenders and places like the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. So I'm doing that. And then I have a bunch of other projects that are taking up my time, both from a publicity standpoint and also pre-production standpoint. On a personal level, I start my day every day by going on a walk with my kids. We play a game called I'm Going on a Bear Hunt, which they taught me, where you say, I'm going on a bear hunt, and then you name, starting with A, and I'm bringing an apple, and then B, and it's a great memory game and a great way to start our day. Then the kids start homeschooling with my brave and incredible wife being their primary educator right now. Well, she selflessly allows me to come back to the office and do some work. And then we have dinner together, and we'll either watch a TV show as a family, something like Lego Masters, which we all love, or it's so fun, or we'll play games. So the past week, we've been playing a game called Wacky Six, which is a really fun card game. And then at night, I read a Harry Potter book to my kids. So we just finished Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and we're about to get started on Goblet of Fire. And it's been so much fun revisiting those books and being able to play all those characters for my girls. And then after we finish the book, I let them watch the movies. And at this rate, I think we're going to finish all 7 books before this is done.
So wait, you do all the voices when you read the Harry Potter? So you have a Dumbledore and a Harry and...
I have a very good Dumbledore. I also have a fairly good Hagrid, I would say. My Harry is a little bit simple. It's not very. I do a pretty good McGonagall. No, I have some good ones. I mean, they're questionable to anybody outside of a 9 and a 6-year-old, I'm sure, but I have fun doing it.
By the way, I want to make sure we mention the YouTube show you're doing, Reunited Apart, that you were speaking about, and people can check it out on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. Our first episode, Reunited Apart, the Goonies, was so unbelievably fun, and the response has been amazing. As of today, I think we've crossed 2 million views and raised over $30,000 or close to $30,000 for the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. Our next one is Back to the Future, and it reunites some of my favorite people ever, including Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, and that's going to support Project Hope. So definitely take a look. I think it's really fun, and hopefully giving people a sense of light in this very dark tunnel we find ourselves in.
I saw the Goonies one because my lawyer was one of the Goonies, and it's
Jeff Cohen.
Jeff Cohen, yeah, isn't he great?
Jeff, I'm very close with Jeff. I love him. I got to tell you, you're going to be in trouble because after he slipped so effortlessly back into that role, I think Chunk is going to come out of retirement and start acting again. At least I think he should.
I would be all for that. By the way, mentioning your kids, do they understand that their dad is Olaf? Do they enjoy that, or are they not impressed by it? Or
they understand.
They understand.
They're nonplussed by it at this point. I tried. I did these Olaf shorts for the kids, and did about 20 of them, which are so wonderful and charming, and recorded all here, right here on this microphone from home, and animated at home by the brilliant animators at Disney Animation, including and led by Hiram Osmond. So I wanted to share them with my girls, obviously, as one would. They couldn't care less. They were like, okay, this is great. Can we go back to Lego Masters? I'm like, guys, I literally did this for you.
You got to get on Lego Masters if you want to impress them, I guess.
I really do.
It is interesting because I was thinking on Avenue 5, you're so good at playing this kind of obnoxious billionaire, but you've also played a lot of really nice guys. I'm thinking of Wedding Ringer and Olaf. Obviously, is there kind of one you prefer? Like, is it sort of fun to play someone as bombastic, as Herman Judd?
There is, because it's a far cry from who I am as a person, and somebody who's just so unbelievably lacking in any self-awareness is always a joy. It's the kind of character that I think I find such comedic opportunity in, because that lack of self-awareness is something that I think we all recognize, and something that we all shake our heads at. But to a character like Judd, who doesn't realize the error of his own ways, if you will, it's really fun getting to walk in those shoes. I've done similar characters, whether it's Elder Cunningham in Book of Mormon, who I would say is more naive than bombastic, but in movies like Little Monsters with Lupita Nyong'o, getting to unshackle the image that people know me for, sometimes a family image, is always a thrill. And with Harmon Judd, there's just so much gold to mine from real world versions of this person that it was really fun sinking my teeth into some of that.
But Herman is at least not a sociopath. Like he actually cares what people think about him. Like he didn't go back to Earth because people were mad at him. So there actually is kind of a sweetness to him.
No, it's true. When in speaking to Armando early on and the writers, it was very important to us that he's not an asshole, that he if anything, he's basically stunted by his growth stopping when he was a child with a silver spoon. You know, and I think he was given probably too much too soon and never had the opportunity to fail and grow and adapt. And I think that is what makes him hopefully likable, is that as the show progresses, he actually is very much and is as much a victim as anyone else on that ship, and doesn't know how to get out of it, and desperately wants to, and thinks he's doing what's in the best interest of the passengers, obviously with his own selfish needs as well. But there's something about the arc of the character that I remember in reading the scripts all the way through, I was so mesmerized by, because he really does go through somewhat of a transformation during the season, and goes from victimizing to becoming very much a victim of his own failures.
What's the most challenging part of doing that show? I'm the person who would be afraid of ruining every take by laughing.
There's definitely a lot of that going on. The hardest part about it is, I would say, living up to the expectation of somebody that you admire so greatly. It's funny. I've been lucky enough to work with a few people in my life who truly intimidate me. Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. Every time I had to bring Jon a pitch, he would sit in his office and he'd chomp on a gumball, and I would go in there with my producer, and we would go in and we would pitch an idea. I was always sweating profusely because I just know he's the smartest man in the room, and there is no way that he's not going to see through my bullshit. And similarly with Trey and Matt on Book of Mormon, and Armando, along with those kings of satire, very much holds that place in my heart where I just want to please him so desperately, and I want to live up to the promise of such a rich character like Judd.
I know he's a great character, and you are weirdly rooting for him, even though he has everything anyone could want.
It's weird. It is weird.
I'm curious because you've done so much, and I've personally witnessed the reaction people have to you at Book of Mormon. I've seen you sign autographs, and I was one of those people who just kept telling you how great you were. What is it that people want to talk to you about the most when they see you? What do they recognize you from? And they probably ask you to do the Olaf voice.
There's a lot. It's funny. You would never imagine that being recognized for primarily for an animated character would be something that would happen. But I think living in the social media age, everybody knows everything about everyone, and so kids make that connection very easily. That I am the voice of Olaf, and I think it really opens up a lot of their imagination. It's just funny. I was on the street the other day and this young girl was running towards me going, "You're Olaf, you're Olaf." It was like, "Whoa, 6 feet, I love you. I'm giving you virtual warm hugs right now." But it's something that's been a blessing. Book of Mormon, same thing. You wouldn't necessarily imagine people would stop you on the street for a show you did 9 years ago for, on average, an audience of 1,100-1,200 people a night. But there you have it. So many people were transfixed by that show, and frankly, everything that I do finds a special place in at least one person's heart, and that's the thrill, the joy, and the amazing opportunity all of us have been given by having a seat in this industry and this profession. Is we get to, especially in a moment like right now, we get to help people escape. We get to help people forget about a lot of their worries, their fears, and their struggles. And I think now more than ever, art is so important as we all try to navigate our way through this unexpected turn of events.
I remember when you were a correspondent on The Daily Show, sometimes people would be like, you're the guy from Book of Mormon while you were trying to interview them.
Yeah. So, you know, what was funny about The Daily Show was I got that job in 2009. And at the time, they wanted me to be a full-time correspondent, and I had to move to New York for very little money, you know, in terms of having to relocate my family. And I couldn't navigate it. I couldn't figure out how to do it and earn a kind of living where I could afford a house for me, my wife, and our soon-to-be baby, our first child. And so I had to decline, and I was heartbroken. And Jon Stewart was so unbelievable. He said, "Why don't we make you a guest correspondent like Larry Wilmore, and you can fly in and out and do pieces for us remotely." And I said, I love you even more than I already did. So I do this. I get through about 6 of them, and then I had been workshopping Book of Mormon for about 2 years at that point, and I get a call from Scott Rudin and from our producer Ann Garofino and the creative team saying, "By the way, we're going straight to Broadway, and it's going to be happening in March of 2010." So I had to tell Jon Stewart, "I know that I didn't move to New York to do Daily Show, but instead I'm moving to New York to do theater," which I can assure you was comparable pay. But they were great, and I did 1 or 2 more pieces before I couldn't because of my day job. But it was a great time in my life.
Do you ever go see, because it's always touring somewhere, do you ever go see Book of Mormon? Is it weird to see other Elder Cunninghams in that part?
Yeah, I've seen it twice. I saw it with Jared Gertner, who replaced me in LA, who's phenomenal. And then I saw it with my good friend Brian Sears, who was in the original Broadway cast with me playing one of the Mormons, and I saw him in London, and he was incredible. And I wish I had seen Ben Platt do it, who I love and adore. But yeah, I've seen it twice, and it's out of body.
You've done so many different mediums: stage, movies, TV. Is there one that you prefer personally?
Man, I love them all for different reasons. Nothing will replace the adrenaline rush of being on a stage in front of a live audience. There is something so intoxicating about sharing this moment in time that will be very different the next time you do it, with very different responses and a different experience with a whole new audience. I find that really intoxicating. TV right now, more than ever, I find so powerful and so potent because it really is our access to people's lives. It is, you know, on a daily basis, I get calls telling me how much something like Avenue 5 is helping them get through this time, or a movie like Frozen 2 being on Disney Plus. They find that it's the calm that they need in this proverbial storm we find ourselves in. And honestly, it's the golden age. I'm as addicted to television as anybody else. I'm so blown away by the performances I get to witness on so many incredible shows. Right now, I'm watching Unorthodox, which is just amazing. Killing Eve, which remains just perfection. And even shows like Westworld, which are just such a blast. There's something so incredible right now about where we find ourselves with television, and I'm just honored that I get to have a seat at the table and get to be a part of something I think equally special and hopefully something that is connecting with people in the way that so many other shows are connecting with me.
And you have another show coming out, one that you co-created, Central Park?
Yeah. So Central Park is a show that I co-created with the creator of Bob's Burgers, Lauren Bouchard, for Apple. And, you know, I've done a lot in my life that I'm so blessed and grateful for. Central Park is definitely at the top of that mantle of achievements that I can safely say I'm truly beyond proud of, in part because I co-created it, but in part because it's just such pure joy from the first moment to the last. It's 10 episodes of television that are, I hope, as uplifting for the audience as they are for me and my family, as we've had an opportunity to watch them all together now. It is a musical event with what I call the musical theater equivalent of the Avengers. You have Kristen Bell, Titus Burgess, Daveed Diggs and Leslie Odom Jr., both from Hamilton fame, Tony Award winners, Catherine Hahn, and of course the brilliant Stanley Tucci. And it's just a joy. The music is next level. 4 episodes a song, 4 songs an episode rather, about 48 songs in the season. And each one I think is going to blow your socks off. So I can't wait. I can't wait.
And it's animated. What do you play in it? I saw the trailer a while ago and I loved it, but it was funny to see.
So I play a character named Birdie, who is our narrator. Let's call him the unreliable narrator. Birdie's a mix between Bert from Mary Poppins and the guitar playing narrator in There's Something About Mary. He owes something to sort of all of the narrators who have come before him, but is really shitty at his job. Really, really not great. And there's just so much fun and joy in seeing a narrator get too close to the story he's supposed to be narrating. That feels fresh and inspired.
That sounds amazing. And it's coming out this month, right?
Yes. Central Park premieres on Apple on May 29th. So please make sure to watch. I think everybody's going to really love it.
And I noticed you're reteaming with your Murder on the Orient Express director, Kenneth Branagh, for Artemis Fowl. This is really exciting.
Kenneth is, Sir Kenneth, as friends must call him, is one of the great collaborators I've ever found myself in orbit with. I am so beyond grateful for the 2 experiences I've had with him, both very different. But Artemis Fowl is a wonderful movie based on an incredible series of books written by Owen Colfer, aptly titled Artemis Fowl. And as Owen's described it, it's sort of Die Hard with fairies, with this kid who is almost an anti-hero, kind of the antithesis of Harry Potter. And it was just so wonderful getting to create this magical world with these incredibly magical characters, like the one I got to play named Mulch Diggums. And that's dropping on Disney Plus in June, I believe, June 16th.
Well, I don't know if there's ever been a better character name than Mulch Diggins.
It's a really good one. It's a really good one.
And you've had some good character names, so.
Yeah, no, I can't complain. I can't complain. I remember first hearing the name Olaf and being like, is that going to resonate? But what do I know?
Yeah, did you ever consider doing a Russian accent or when you were finding Olaf's voice?
Not sure that it would be as welcoming if he was like, I prefer warm hugs. This for me is my preference for introduction. Not sure if that would have had the same resonance.
By the way, I noticed you were posting some BTS photos on social media of Artemis Fowl, where like originally he was going to have contacts. You were just sort of showing the process, which I think is so fascinating. You seem to have a good relationship with social media. I've really enjoyed some of your posts where you talk about like, it's okay to cry. Is it easy to have that relationship with your fans and even virtual strangers on social media?
I wouldn't call it easy. I think it is a maze. I think that there's a majority of people on social media who are really, really incredible, who are out there trying to, in the best way possible, make connections. And then there are people who abuse it, like any outlet, and are out to instigate and create conflict. And to me, the risk is worth the reward, though, because it's allowed me to share emotionally where I am, literally where I am, professionally where I am. And so I welcome that opportunity, despite sometimes the sacrifices that you need to make in order to wade through the muck, if you will.
I often wonder if actors are really good at social media because they've had to deal with auditions and rejection and every form of putting themselves out there.
Yeah, I think that's a very astute observation. I mean, I think, you get used to rejection at an early age when you're doing this long enough. You build up a thick skin because, the first couple of times you hear you're not worthy of a job, it's so emotionally catastrophic that if it were to be that throughout your entire career, it would cause a mental breakdown. So you sort of have to build up a thick skin. So when you see trolls on the internet, it really is nothing compared to, getting rejected for your livelihood. So I do think that there is some truth to that.
But you must have been pretty good at auditioning because you were working pretty quickly right out of college.
Oh, I sucked at auditions.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was not a great auditioner. In fact, took me a long time to figure out that auditioning and acting were two different things. And the first couple of times out of the gate, rough. I hope nobody ever sees any of my early audition footage. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But no, it really didn't click until I got my first big break on Broadway in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And at that point, I sort of figured, what have I got to lose? I was going to go to law school because I was tired of getting rejected. And of all people, my Jewish mother convinced me to stick it out. And she started crying when I called her, telling her I'm going to go to law school like my two brothers, my older brothers. And she said, I'm disappointed with you. And I said, you're disappointed that I'm going to law school? It was just like every Jewish mother's dream. She goes, I'm disappointed because you've spent 15 years dreaming about doing something and only 3 years trying to live out that dream. And I think that that's a cop-out. And because of that, I flew to New York and I auditioned to replace Tony winner Dan Fogler in Spelling Bee. I had no credits other than an episode of ER, and certainly nothing that would give anybody anything but pause to suggest that I could take over a Tony Award winning role on Broadway. And I knew I had nothing to lose. So I just went for it. I put myself out there. And then from there, auditioning became easier. It's still confusing and always surreal, but even when I find myself in an amazing place now where I'm not having to make all the phone calls, a lot of the phone calls are incoming, I still love auditioning when I get the chance. I love flexing that muscle. I love continuing to grow, continuing to force myself to rise to new challenges, and continuing to have to prove to not only others, but to myself what I'm capable of.
By the way, you got to play a lawyer in Marshall, so you sort of got the best of both worlds.
I did. I tell my mother that as well.
Before we go, I want to remind everyone you can look in the comments for information on SAG-AFTRA Foundation's COVID-19 Relief Fund. And I just, also before we go, I want to tell everyone to watch The Internship, because we were talking about it earlier, and it was one of my first exposures to you, and such a great role. Another kind of mad genius, but a much nicer one.
Yeah, Sean Levy, I'll never forget, Sean Levy called me up and asked me to come in for 2 days to film this essentially cameo in the movie. And I love Sean, so I was like, of course. And it was such an out there character that I took even more out there. And Sean got back from a test screening and he goes, we have a problem. And I said, what is it? He goes, your character is testing higher than a lot of characters. I'm like, that's a problem. The guy's in 2 minutes of the film. But it's such a great movie. It's such a wonderfully endearing and terrific, not only movie about one of the amazing corporations out there in the world, Google, but just a great rom-com with two of the greatest actors in any comedic enterprise, Vince Vaughn and Owen, and I love that it was their follow-up to Wedding Crashers and that I could be a part of it.
That's right. Oh my gosh. So I want to tell everyone, actually, they can check out all episodes of Avenue 5, now available on HBO. They should also watch The Comedians, which I guess was your last series, which is excellent, which a lot of people are discovering during the pandemic. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. And thank you everyone at home for watching.
Thank you as well. And to all of my fellow SAG-AFTRA members who are out there right now struggling, we hear you, we're with you. We are one big community and we all have each other's backs, and we're going to get through this together. It is a hard time, and there are a lot of people who are depending on not only paychecks, but are depending on insurance and things that are necessary for survival. And I've been very blown away by the response of our community to rise up to that challenge, not only for SAG-AFTRA, but for equity as well, and for the other guilds. And as a united front, I think we are going to get through this. So I love you all.
Thank you so much.